The 18th of June, 2026. Eating out of garbage cans. Being homeless for a month and a half. St. George, Utah. Goodbye, Dante. This episode's title of In the Image Clothing Company podcast on today's date. The 18th of June. As we say, what's up, y'all? My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. This is a video that is also a podcast episode in audio only form. Okay, two forms of checking us out here. Okay, episode 206 is what this is of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. And yeah, see ya. Goodbye, Dante. We'll talk about it. What do we do here? Well, this is where we talk about the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. One of the four sides to In the Image Clothing Company. What we do on the main side of In the Image Clothing Company is allowing the body to work. Okay? Anything physically placed on our bodies, the literal word of clothing, glasses, hats, pants, shoes, socks, tops, undergarments, whatever it is, anything in between, placed on the human being, you can't alter the body. The body only has one way it could ever possibly work, determined by the shape and length of the bones, connecting directly to each other. Okay, there's only one way this happens. They connect through ligaments. There's a thin layer of cushioning between them called cartilage. Muscles only pull and only directly in line. Okay, so yeah, there you go. Muscles connecting to the bones through tendons. All this can be very much altered by clothing. Staying centered, fitting correct, and being made in all the ways we can from 100% natural materials are three of the baseline things clothing has to do for the body. Although, you don't know where it means or what it means for clothing to fit correct if you don't. Okay, things like joints of material of clothing meshing with joints of body parts, and a lot of things like this, We get into chronic patterning, oversized clothing. When we don't have joints of material of clothing meshing with joints of body parts and gravity just pulls our shoulders down with oversized tops, for example, gravity having the same effect on our clothing that it has on our bodies. That's one of the big things, okay? Imbalances of any kind in clothing. Seams, buttons, zippers, pockets, stitching, collar seams, rotated seams, whatever it could be, different, discrepant on either side of the body, front and back, left or right. Ropes, shoelaces, drawstrings, introduced to the body, tied one side over the other, we twist the entire body. Damage. Okay, year after year, whoa, there's a tag in the rear of this pink top I'm wearing, this button up. Talk about things that can alter the body, tags, that only exist as of tens of years ago from today's date, the 18th of June, 2026. Just causing a physical gap in our clothing, between our bodies and our clothing, changing, altering the only way the human being could ever work. Yikes, let's take it off. I've got a white t-shirt underneath this. It is what it is. And what this is how we allow the body to work, because everything we do within our lives, we're doing it in and through whatever we choose to literally clothe our bodies with, that we have to address first. Okay, so there you go. Now, this is the thing. Okay, Dante, he's gone. Dante was my standard poodle. Now if you notice, because we date mark just about everything we do under video is what we do so much of, okay, under In the Image Clothing Company. All four sides of us, a huge part of what we always have been and always will be is what I call the gift of video. Documentations, and we date mark things, okay? We give a lot of explanation on things, the anatomy of the human body, and In the Image Clothing Company's main side. Free modifications in clothing, when clothing comes with imbalances in it to not alter our bodies, is why we need to modify things, So there's a lot going on under In the Image Clothing Company, and what was going on for the past 6 months from December 2025 until 2 days ago, right? Would have been the 16th. Yeah, okay. Yeah, the 16th of June 2026. I owned this beautiful dog named Dante, because under one of our fourths, In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, where we specialize in what Dante was, a purebred, standard size, which is the large size of the breed of the poodle. Now, I don't know for certain he was purebred, but everything I know about poodles, there's nothing that had me questioning that he had any kind of mix of any kind of dog in him other than a poodle. But without doing a DNA test, I wouldn't know for sure, because I adopted him, okay, from the South Utah Valley Animal Shelter in December of 2025. He's an awesome dog, extremely healthy. He was what we're looking to have under In the Image Clothing Company poodles when we breed our poodles. What we call a do-everything dog. Go on hikes with you, go on long walks with you, and is able to physically, capably do those things. But then also, he was so content to just sit with me while I was filming episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, for example. He's in so many of them. And we can do just about nothing through the day, and he's content as long as he's with me, or as long as he was with me. And I'm speaking past tense about these things because I will never have Dante again. He got a new home, is the point of the explanation, is the point of this video's title, this podcast episode. And it's not only just to explain what happened to Dante, because I could do that just where I do and give a relatively quick explanation. Well, Dante found a new home. It's time for him to be with someone else. Nothing really bad at all happened like with me or with him or with him and I together. But it's just that I can't keep him right now and he needs to go with someone else. And then that could be it. I could just give that explanation because that's the explanation. And there's a lot more to it, and we could just talk about it where we do under In the Image Clothing Company to give context, because In the Image Clothing Company is and still always will be one of our fourths under In the Image Clothing Company. And we'll get more dogs. We'll still breed standard poodles. But, you notice, if you do, going back through In the Image Clothing Company content, especially In the Image Clothing Company podcast, I've discussed it a lot, We've got many episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, even though this is where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. They're specifically titled things about dogs. Taking care of our dogs is one episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast's title. I run a clothing company and do things with dogs is another episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast's title. Don't get too big for your dog, an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast's title. And there's quite a few other ones as far as I'm aware, and we've just talked about it. Well, yeah, there is. In the Image Clothing Company Poodles breeding program. It's probably titled the In the Image Clothing Company Poodles breeding program, but that's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, And there's one titled Nita, who I kept saying will be my first dog. And then I adopted Dante. It wasn't a mistake for me to adopt Dante. Let's talk about this. That's why this is an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. That's what I'm explaining, rather than just me explaining it and giving like what I just said there, or just a simple explanation like that and moving on. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to talk about this, meaning a lot of what happened when I had Dante, a lot of why it was an amazing thing for me to have Dante, why he was and still is an amazing dog, all the things that I learned owning Dante that prepared me for things and humbled me in ways, helped me grow in so many ways. So let's talk about it, right? Because what I'm saying you'll notice is if you look back through In the Image Clothing Company content, even on the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, I'm just standing outside somewhere, or sitting on the ground, filming a video like in a field, right? As so many of them are up until today's day, the 18th of June, 2026. And I'm discussing the anatomy of the human body, or I'm discussing clothing's effect on the body, modifications in clothing, things we can do free like that to not alter our bodies, and just how the body works, meshing not so well with this modern man-made world placed onto God's natural earth. When the goal is natural on all four sides of In the Image Clothing Company, when the body's only natural, when we only have natural things, unnatural comes from natural and then always decomposes back to natural. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. God made the earth with all the things that are here, and then the human being to place on it afterward, It is what it is. These are the things we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company. Truth. Things we don't get to decide or change, and things that will always just be exactly the same. Like God himself. Also called the truth, right? The same. Yesterday, today, and forever. So what I'm saying is when I've talked about Dante, and also what I'm saying is, even though we're not directly discussing like scripture here in this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, everything we talk about is just truth, just real, just life as it is. That's discussing the gospel of Jesus Christ, also called the truth of all things. It's just things as they are, just an explanation of life. So we are discussing the gospel of Jesus Christ. My growth through this whole process and my connection with God deepening and changing in a lot of beautiful, beneficial ways through this whole process, actually, of having Dante, But what I'm saying is, I've worded it so many times, almost every time I've said it. Like when I've introduced Dante, I'm like, this is Dante, my current standard poodle. You catch the word that I said so many times, intentionally, for reasons partially known, partially unknown on my part, but I knew I needed to be saying it like that. Partially known, meaning I know that I'm going to have many dogs throughout my life, and he was just my current dog at the time, out of all the dogs I'll have, because human beings usually and generally outlive dogs. Poodles only live up to somewhere right around 15 years, give or take. If they're healthy and we take care of them well, you can expect somewhere like close to 15 years with a poodle. But I kept wording it like that. Like, this is my current standard poodle, Dante. Now, he's not my standard poodle. He's this beautiful young couple's standard poodle down in St. George, Utah, because I was down there for a month and a half. Homeless. With Dante. And we learned so much through the process. And it was extremely hard. Without exaggerating in the slightest, there were so many times when I almost died. It was rough. But it was extremely educational, if you will, for me, right? So, yeah, it was great. Here I am back in Utah County, right? Back where I was a month and a half ago, where I've been as the founder of In The Image Clothing Company since the founding of In The Image Clothing Company. And however long I'm going to be here again until we do what we do next. I still have every intention to go permanently live in St. George, Utah, but I didn't have a place to actually stay yet, and I didn't really have money at all right now, right? And I don't even have my own vehicle right now. A lot of things that are so different in this time of my life than I have experienced in the past years of my life. Things I've discussed under In The Image Clothing Company podcast, because a lot of what I do is just discuss my own journey through life. There's an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast titled Evan Strong. Well, in the opposite order though. In The Image Clothing Company and Evan Strong are one. That's how I word it. That's why I word it like that. We title things intentionally. We label things intentionally. We say things intentionally and do things intentionally. Approach things intentionally here under In The Image Clothing Company. And as I say, I'm the founder and leader for life of In The Image Clothing Company. Like, that's how I word it, is like that very, very often. So Dante was my current, at the time that I owned him, standard poodle. But Dante is no longer my dog. He went to an amazing family. No worry about that on anyone's end about him being taken care of. I wouldn't have given him to someone that I didn't think would take good care of him. Dante was like my son. I had every intention to keep Dante for the rest of my life and take care of him. But every time that I thought about what was going to happen once I do get Nita, the female standard poodle that we can start the breeding program with, and she'll be my personal dog and, the matriarch of the breeding program. Every time I thought about it, I was like, all right, so we're going to have all these dogs around, but for us to have female non-spayed standard poodles in our house, like as my personal dogs, we can't have a male dog around them without, having them be wanting to be with each other. It just never seemed right. Not only that, and that is a big thing, neutered or unneutered, with a male dog, still being around female dogs, they're going to have that desire to be with them more intimately, and so it's just kind of something that you deal with if you have male and female dogs together. And Dante wasn't actually neutered. I was supposed to get him neutered. This is just me, full transparency. You adopt a dog from the shelter and you're supposed to get him neutered. I probably actually signed a form that I would get him neutered. And I don't have to say this other than I just want to be honest about it and just to give context, because I was still planning to neuter him, but I spent 20 to 24 hours a day, just about every single day with Dante for these 6 months that I had him up until 2 days ago. So I basically never let him out of my sight. And, things could still happen whenever. And so when we discuss being a good owner of dogs and how to under In The Image Clothing Company poodles, that's a big thing. You don't want unexpected, unplanned litters of puppies and female dogs' pregnancies, because Well, we advocate for the importance of the health of purebred dogs. It's one of the biggest things, under In the Image Clothing Company poodles, and one of the biggest reasons we will be breeding poodles, purebred, properly to show why that's important and what's going on there. So, and how to do it, well. We're not going to do it perfect, but right. I mean, we're going to do it pretty much as well as we can, really. I mean, that's the intention, right? So anyway, it's all still the same. I mean, that's just what I want to make clear is I don't have Dante anymore, and I won't. He's got a new home. He's gone. I wrote up a little like transfer of ownership, just handwritten, just to make it proper and legal. Legal meaning if they go try to like have somebody help them with him, his microchip information had my name on it and my information on it, and so I just, we fully transferred him over ownership. It's not like he's just with someone else for a time. I fully rehomed Dante. And why this matters is because of why it matters. I mean, there's a lot to this where it just never seemed right, first of all. The reason I gave Dante away, or found him a new home, is something I should probably explain before I say what I'm going to say here, because, yeah, it's not like I was sick of Dante, or I decided I didn't like him, and it's not like he was a problem in ways that, I didn't expect, or anything like that. Meaning he's not a problem. Dante wasn't the problem. The problem in this specific time in my life is where I personally am in life, and I need my own place, which I knew before I even adopted Dante, and the whole situation of me getting Dante and where he's been living and how this has all been. It's all been documented, date marked, posted publicly under what I call the gift of video, under In the Image Clothing Company. So the whole process, it's just been what it's been, and I knew since the very beginning I wasn't physically ready to have a dog. Like, having things in my life physically, tangibly set in place for it to really work efficiently and well and smooth for me to own a dog right now. I knew that before I adopted Dante. And again, I've explained that through the whole process, posted publicly here under In the Image Clothing Company podcast as one of the big places. But, so regardless of anything, the reason that I don't have Dante anymore is just because it's not supposed to be anymore. I'm not supposed to be Dante's owner anymore. He's not supposed to be my dog for a lot of different reasons that are just what they are. Not problems, right? It's not like I couldn't handle Dante, or it's not like he was a bad dog. It's just circumstances that are what they are. It needed to work out this way. And so much so that, like I'm saying, every time I pictured my house with me and my dogs in it and like my family and whatever, years down the road, from me picturing this, I was always like, man, even while having Dante, it's going to be kind of weird. Dante is going to be older than all these dogs, but he's going to be smaller than our dogs. I've talked about as well, we're going to have big dogs under In the Image Clothing Company poodles. And Dante wasn't a very big dog. He's a 21-inch tall at the withers, 35-pound standard poodle. He's kind of a small standard size. And he's nice and portable, more so than a bigger dog, as far as like getting him in cars and crates and carriers and things like that. But I mean, it's just, I've always had this like envisioning it come to my mind of us like having our house, like me and my family, right? And we've got like 3 or 4, maybe like 4 female dogs that are like pretty big standard poodles, or like regular size standard poodles, like 25 inches maybe at the withers, And then there's Dante, this little dog, like 4 inches shorter than him, yeah, probably about those sizes. Yeah. Right, and so he's like this smaller dog, but he's older than them, and we've got these female dogs that we know are purebred and AKC registered, just properly registered though. However, if things change or whatever, but right now it's the American Kennel Club is what you really register dogs through, right? Like the most universal registration through the bloodlines and the breeding and the generations of dogs to further good bloodlines of dogs. So we'll have these like really properly done, if you will, properly bred dogs that we know their story from birth, and and then there's Dante, who's, I'm not like talking about him in a bad way, but it's just that he's different. And that's not a problem, but just almost kind of. Not that Dante's the problem, but it just never felt like it made sense since the very beginning when I first adopted Dante. And again, I've said these things the whole entire time. I never had anything against Dante. I still love Dante as I did the whole time. He's like my son, like truly. The connection him and I had together, especially spending, and I'm not exaggerating, because I haven't really done much else in this time where I had like schedules of things like where I had to go certain places away from him, for the past 6 months that I've owned him up until 2 days ago from now, the 18th of June, 2026. But, wherever I'd go, it would normally be places where I'd be inside for like a couple hours and I'd leave him in the car as long as the temperature was fine. And, so yeah, like right in a crate. And what I'm saying is I was with him for so much of the time. Him and I created such a beautiful bond. I love Dante. There was never anything wrong with him, okay? But he just kind of never made quite full sense to have long term. And I wasn't expecting to just get rid of him at any time, but it makes sense now that I did get rid of him. It makes sense why God had me get Dante. Do you see what I'm saying? If you don't, I'm still going to say a lot more in this just to give context on why this is all happening how it is and what I've experienced through it. Because that's the point of just living life anyways, experiencing, learning, growing, and yeah, that's a lot of what happened with owning Dante for both of us too. He grew so much. I did so much training with Dante, and he gained so much life experience. Being a rescue, we don't know for sure how old he is, but he's probably only like 2.5 years old. So he's got a long life still, and he's got a lot of experience now that he gained with me. A lot of beautiful, fun adventures, a lot of beautiful bonding moments and time. He always slept with me. He went everywhere with me. I shared food with him. I mean, he's seriously like a son, to me. And still, even though he's not mine anymore. But anyway, we're going to do things properly. And I've just documented it all. And we're still the same approach, if you will. It's just still the same focus, the intentionality. So we'll get our, dogs from puppyhood, Nita especially. Meaning the rest of our dogs, they'll probably be offsprings from our own dogs. As we breed dogs, we'll keep a puppy from the litter, keep a female, and then, keep going from there. When it comes to like building our generations of offspring from the first one that we use under In the Image Clothing Company Poodle's breeding program, which her name will be Nita still. I mean, it's all still the same. That's what I mean is it's not like any kind of like step backward because I no longer own Dante. It's not like any kind of step backward because I'm back here in Utah County from St. George, Utah, as of now, for now at least. Even though I was talking about how we're moving down to St. George, Utah, what we did, we were there for a month and a half, and a lot happened, okay? But Dante, yeah, he's awesome. So this is the thing, is I'm still going to be the father, if you will, of all the poodles that I personally own going forth. I'm still always the founder and will be still for the rest of my life the leader of In The Image Clothing Company, with 1/4 of us being In The Image Clothing Company poodles. Keeping collars centered and light and minimal, and snug for both human beings and dogs. The slogan, letting dogs stay natural, on In The Image Clothing Company Poodles, with information applying to all dogs, is the same as our slogan, allowing the body to work, under In The Image Clothing Company's main side for the human beings, applying to all human beings within this universal human design, right? Every body who has one and every one who has a body. So it's still the same. It's all still the same. It's not like anything's changed, is what I'm saying. Because I don't have Dante, when it comes to In The Image Clothing Company, and then specifically In The Image Clothing Company Poodles. Oh, I'm still planning for everything that I've talked about. It's the same. So, yeah, just to be clear, and that's like I'm saying, that's a big reason for this being a full podcast episode too, to give the context. Because if somebody maybe was following the journey of what's going on here under In The Image Clothing Company, and they're like, what? Dante is no longer one of the In The Image Clothing Company poodles? And what happened? Here's a full In The Image Clothing Company podcast episode of context, because I learned more how to be a father than I knew before. I was literally homeless Dante and I both were down there. I say a month and a half, but that's just like me roughly saying it because week and week and week would go by, and I was like trying to keep track, just like roughly of how long we had been down there. It's hot, which I expected, and it is what it is. I mean, it's not, really nothing happened that I didn't expect. Just to be clear as well. I mean, yeah, but it's hot. It started to get over 100 degrees every day Fahrenheit. And it's not safe. It's literally physically dangerous to be outside in that kind of temperature all day, every day. Um, without the proper resources, and we didn't have them. Okay, so we were literally eating out of garbage cans and sleeping, wherever we could, trying to sleep in places that were legal to sleep. And there's a lot to this story, and I'll give more context where I do going forth under In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Probably is where it's going to be the most documented. But all this happened with me and my dog Dante, and he was my protector, man. He was my best friend. When we'd be sleeping outside, homeless, and Dante senses things before I do, and so he would seriously be keeping me safe from any kind of potential things. We saw 4 rattlesnakes while we were down there. We saw a sidewinder rattlesnake. Beautiful. That thing made my whole day that day. We saw a black widow spider, and I saw a scorpion just on the sidewalk in the town in St. George, Utah there, so, which, I mean, I'm just giving the context, not like I was shocked. I understand that the desert's like that down there. I've been there many times, but I'm painting a picture. We were totally homeless in this kind of situation, plus the heat, and I didn't have any money, no food, I didn't have any kind of transportation. We were living out of a wagon that I was pulling around. So I had Dante that I was walking in my left hand, and then a wagon that I was pulling in my right hand behind me, and Dante was in front. It's just like walking on a sidewalk like that through the town and just down there in the desert. I learned so much, and so Dante was with me through all of it. He was there, man. So yeah, I mean, as much as it really just is like being a father when you own a dog, I had to really be forced to be his caretaker, in a situation that was hard for both of us. And so I really grew through that. And I really learned what it means to have your dog limit your lifestyle. And that's one of those things we have to be just real about, as people, no matter how much we love dogs. And I'm still going to own many, many dogs throughout my life. And when I say that, I mean, it's not like I'm just going to have so many dogs, but just meaning, yeah, I mean, I am, right? Like, for the reasons that I am, for what we're teaching and sharing here under In the Image Clothing Company, well, podcast here, but In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, with letting dogs stay natural, and living in this unnatural modern man-made world as well, all the hidden dangers and things for the dogs that they don't understand how to navigate the way that we do as human beings. But also just having another member of the family and teaching how to take care of dogs properly and what it really means, dehydrated food that we need to rehydrate and all these things, slippery, flat, unnatural flooring for the dog's feet, just like ours as human beings, this man-made flooring when there's always texture to nature and the feet grip the ground, The feet arches grip inward opposing the center line and keep us vertical in the human being. And then the dogs, they just have so much dexterity and texture in their feet as well that just needs to grip the ground. It was just some context, right, on what we do under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't have to be a bad thing to say or a bad thing to admit that in a lot of ways dogs can limit certain parts and things within your life and your lifestyle. But if you have your own house and you have your own transportation and that's about it, and the financial means to take care of these things, then your dog doesn't really limit your lifestyle. As long as you're committed to getting a dog and taking care of them for their whole life, and you know what you're getting yourself into, and these are the things we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles too, is thinking about what needs to happen beforehand before you get a dog, and that's what I'm saying. I lived the experience of not being prepared and still getting a dog. And it's ironic because I filmed the episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Taking Care of Our Dogs before I adopted Dante. So I didn't go into it naive or ignorant. I didn't. Adopting Dante? No. It's date marked. It's posted publicly. Before I adopted him, I was talking about like we need to make sure we're all ready before we own dogs. I knew. I know. It is what it is. But now I personally have the experience of not being ready and trying to take care of a dog before myself. We'd be finding food down there in the desert. When I say in the desert, I mean in the town, but the town's just in the desert, in the Mojave Desert there, St. George, Utah. Hot, dry, empty, desert. And then they just have a town place there. So there's resources in the town, only if you take resources to the town, the people that do that. Like they bring truckloads of things to the stores from other places, though. You don't really grow just about anything in the Mojave Desert. Not really. Not there in St. George, Utah. So hot and so dry. So, yeah, we're finding food in garbage cans and we're just, getting the bare necessities. And I'd be feeding Dante before I fed myself, and so it taught me so much on what it means to care for another creature of God's, another creation of God's. I mean, yes, preparing me for the rest of my dogs that I'll own going forth as the founder and leader of In the Image Clothing Company Poodles. Okay, me, Evan Strong. But also being a good husband, being a good father to my own kids one day, if and when I have them. And then just any human being or anything ever in life. I had to put Dante before myself because, especially with a dog, man, I'm choking up. There's something like right here on the right side of my trachea. Especially with a dog, you can't quite ask a dog questions and they'll answer you the way that a human being does. I mean, Dante would speak to me, especially poodles, being as intelligent they are, being as intelligent as they are. Statistically, they're somewhere around the second smartest. Well, smart and intelligent are two different things in the ways that they are, but intelligent dogs, yeah, next to the border collie. Last time I checked, within the past year, they're statistically the second most intelligent dog breed. The poodle is, right? So Dante's like a human, and I always said that he was more human than he was dog, really. I mean, the way that he acts and the way that he communicates with human beings, it's like another human more than like you're talking to a dog. But he couldn't actually like verbally speak to me and tell me what exactly he needs, exactly how much he's thirsty, or exactly how hungry he is. And I was very in tune with him, I spent all day every day with him. I was literally with Dante 24 hours a day, the entire time for the month and a half we were in St. George, Utah. Somewhere right around 20 hours a day before we moved down there because I'd be going and doing things maybe 3-4 hours a day, give or take, on some days. But we went down there and I didn't have a house to leave him in, in a crate, or a car to leave him in a crate. I had nothing, dude. I had nothing. I didn't even have enough food for myself each day, and so I had to feed Dante first just to make sure that I was taking care of him when I knew what I needed to the degree that I just could understand myself. But I couldn't fully get an explanation like verbally from Dante, exactly what he needs. And so, keeping his feet safe on the asphalt when it's so hot, and the concrete gets hot, but not quite as hot as the asphalt. And then, even the dirt, sand. It's the desert. You got sand, and even the rocks are just made of sand. It's sandstone, right? Just compacted sand becomes rocks, and there you go. The Mojave Desert for you. I had to keep Dante's feet cool, so I bought little booties for him. We haven't actually used, and I still have them, even though I don't have Dante anymore. But we'll have other dogs, that's what I'm saying, so yeah, little like shoes for Dante, like what they'd use in the snow for snow dogs, like huskies, for example, up in Alaska or wherever you have huskies in the snow, pulling sled or whatever, just pulling weight, like working dogs. But for Dante, I got booties for him for the heat before it got like around 100 degrees Fahrenheit every day. It was like in the 80s, 90-degree Fahrenheit. It started climbing because it's June right now, 2018. No, it's June 2026, but it's the 18th of June. And so the past month and a half from now back, is when we were down there. And so, well, from 2 days ago is, yeah, back is when I had Dante. Man, crazy. Crazy. So much has happened. The past month and a half, it's been unreal. Like with me and within the Image Clothing Company's progression, I filmed so many, which was amazing to be able to do videos under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company while we were down there in St. George, Utah. I filmed a lot of episodes of a series titled All In under In the Image Clothing Company music. You know, like spoken word, off the top lyricism, rhythm and poetry type, long form freestyles is what that series is, you know, around the gospel of Jesus Christ with the messages. And so we did a lot of that. So much happened, you know, in so many different ways with me personally, and then through me as the founder, you know, of In the Image Clothing Company. I did a lot of work down there, truly, in this way, like for the company, as well as all the other work in all the ways. It's awesome. It's not like it didn't work out. And well, shoot, I'm back. It's like I'm back, but it worked out. And only time will tell exactly what St. George, Utah, and In the Image Clothing Company will look like. Yeah. I still said what I've said, and I still mean it, you know, about St. George, Utah, and the location, and us being down there, and having our building down there, and our team down there. But I just need to be as prepared as I need to be before I can personally be down there as the founder, and then just as Evan Strong in general. Just to literally, physically, no exaggeration, survive, you know, the heat and the desert down there. So yeah, man, nobody lived down there until they made it how it is nowadays, until you had air conditioning, you know, and just the ways that we have our modern technologies and transportation. We talk about, you know, things like any kind of imbalances in clothing. They're shipped across the entire earth nowadays in ways that could have never happened in the past because of the technology we have to do that. So many things are different nowadays that never could have been how they are now. People just didn't live down there. It's too hot. It's physically dangerously too hot. You know, certain people did, like the natives that really have been there since like a long time ago that lived off the land, you know, but it was hard. It still is hard, and it's hard where it is anywhere on the earth, but it's just a different kind of level of survival with that much heat, with that little of resources, and it's like a barren wasteland. I've worded it like that even before we went down there, and I know, and like I'm saying, I'm still planning on going down there, but I'm not going to force anything, and whatever happens, it's always God's will, no matter what, that I'm trying to seek, right? So, well, yeah, we'll see what happens. It might just be a little bit of time, and then we go back down there, or it might be, you know, a good amount of time. We'll go back down, or things might change entirely. But yeah, I mean, it's not like I got some kind of wake up call and changed all my plans. It's just that I had to come back here for now. That's really all it is, truly. Um, I also had to get rid of Dante. But you know, when I say that, it's not like it's a bad thing. He went to this nice young couple, like I'm saying. They well, I can say all the information I want, I guess, but I don't know how much is necessary. But they've got a house. They have a yard, and he's going to be inside with them as well. And so they said they've got family who has dogs, and so he's going to be around some good people, you know. And so they also talked about, you know, they kept saying how much he's going to love the lake, and I'm like, oh, cool. You know, I don't know exactly what lake they meant down there, but yeah, there's lakes around, you know. There's Sand Hollow, and there's a lot of lakes in Utah. Um, and then just, yeah, I mean, just whatever. I'm just saying the point of me saying this behind In the Image Clothing Company podcast is to give context on when I got rid of Dante. We can word it like that, but really, I rehomed Dante to a good place, you know. So he's going to be good, and I'm good with it. Meaning, I feel good about it. I'm good after it happened. I'm not crushed that I don't have Dante anymore. Um, and he's still going to have a really great life. Yeah, I mean, in ways it might be better for him specifically too to be with them than it would have been for him to be with me, potentially. Just not that they're gonna take care of him better than I would. That's not what I mean. It's not like I don't take care of dogs well, but just meaning, right? Certain dogs mesh with certain people, certain lifestyles, and um, Dante. Not that it would have been a problem, but he would have always kind of been the odd dog out in our company of purebred dogs. You know, we could never again, I knew all these things before and then when and during adopting Dante, you know? I mean, and through the whole time I had him. It's not a problem. And none of this is the reason why I got rid of him. Again, just to be clear. Again, rehomed him. It's not like I just got rid of him. But yeah, you know, we could have never possibly used Dante as an example of a healthy, purebred dog, you know, as far as explaining the process of breeding dogs. And we could have never used Dante under In the Image Clothing Company poodles, is what I'm saying, as an example of raising a dog from puppyhood and teaching them things like from the very beginning of their life. And why this is it's not a problem, but why this is a point to focus on it and a point to really hit, and why it really does matter for us as In the Image Clothing Company poodles, specifically as one of our forwards under In the Image Clothing Company, is that's why we are In the Image Clothing Company poodles, is to focus on ownership and health and growth and development and breeding and unalteration of dogs, you know, and all of these kind of things through this avenue, you know, feeding and hydration and even bathing them and keeping them safe when there's so many chemicals that come into products that seem so good, like shampoos for dogs and, you know, leave-in conditioners and, you know, things for dogs' teeth, bedding that dogs sleep on, and you know, powders in their ears, or, you know, the ways of grooming dogs that can harm them more than help them when the intention is to help them, you know, plucking hair out of the inside of the dog's ear canal rather than just cutting it right at the opening of the canal. All these things are a lot of what we do under In the Image Clothing Company poodles, and I'm just giving context here, but as well, a lot of it is, you know, the whole lifespan of a dog from puppyhood through their whole life. Like I was discussing in that episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Taking Care of Our Dogs. Ironically enough, that's the only episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast I filmed while I was in St. George, Utah. That was last year, 2025 November. And then when I went back to St. George, Utah this year, 2026, you know, and I was there this past month and a half until just yesterday. I had Dante with me until just 2 days ago, and he got rehomed 2 days ago, which would have been the 16th of June 2026, to a beautiful in the ways of they're beautiful people, young couple in St. George, Utah. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of this, it's working out in ways I never could have possibly imagined, but I'm doing all I can, as I do, to follow God's will. And that means like step by step, second by second. And that's something you learn when you're homeless and trying to just find food, you know, and take care of yourself and your dog. And I didn't want Dante to have any more struggles than he would just be having, you know, normally, even though we were homeless. And so that's what I mean. A lot of it was me really learning what it means and what it takes to take care of and own a dog. Dante was my first dog, personally. You know, and as the founder of a company with 1/4 of us being specifically devoted to dog ownership and care, now I've got a lot of experience in ways that I wouldn't have ever possibly been able to have quite the same if I wasn't fully homeless with a dog as well, right? So anyway, yeah, goodbye, Dante, is this episode's title of In the Image Clothing Company podcast on the 18th of June, 2026. And why I want this to be here is for the learning, for the explanation, because, yeah, not that there was anything wrong with Dante in any way, and not that it's wrong to not fit in, because we talk about so often under In the Image Clothing Company being the outcast, how Jesus Christ himself was always cast out by the world, and so different. You know, God's ways are higher and holier than the world's ways, and they're completely opposite ends of doing things. And God was rejected by the world, and, you know, we're commanded to be in the world, but not of the world. It's always about the paradox of, as we say, the paradoxical gospel of Jesus Christ. And it's no problem to be different. And in fact, you know, and in truth, if you will, even, like, Well, the thing is, yes, in all truth, we are just different. There's this universal human design, but within it, we all have differences. But also, not only that, but we want to tap into and really focus in on our differences, because that's why we're here. That's what makes us unique. That's what makes us likable and lovable. Is our uniqueness. So for those reasons, and on my end of things, like my view toward Dante, there was never any problem with this idea of him being different, because we didn't get him from birth, and because I didn't have any papers knowing for sure he was purebred, and because he was a little bit smaller than we're expecting our other poodles to be. Just to be very clear that it's not about a prestige why we focus on purebred dogs. That's something I've said many, many times, and we'll say it if and where we do under In the Image Clothing Company poodles. It's about the health. Why we put so much focus on purebred dogs, under In the Image Clothing Company poodles. But as far as I know, and as far as I saw, spending just about every second and every day with Dante, like seriously, right, for 6 months, he's a healthy dog. And like I'm saying, as far as I know, he's purebred anyway. And also, just to be clear, I've said it since like May at least of 2025 under In the Image Clothing Company content. I just know that for sure because I remember making some videos about purebred dogs back then. We say a mutt is a mutt, and I do, speaking personally for myself, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, with 1/4 of us being In the Image Clothing Company poodles, and I say, when I say that, just be clear on hearing me correct on what I say, because I'm not being insultive or offensive, but dogs only come from where dogs come from, and you'd basically never have a mixed dog in the wild. That's how dogs live. Is the healthiest, strongest dogs live, and healthy, strong dogs come from purebred dogs. You start mixing dogs and you get health complications. Anyway, why I'm giving this context in here is on the end of explaining that there wasn't anything wrong with Dante. There wasn't anything wrong with my view on him, from him being a dog from a shelter, if you will. I'm almost trying to figure out what I'm trying to say, because I just want to make it really clear on the intention I always had with him. I loved him. I still love him. And I didn't give up on him. You see what I mean? I was content being homeless with him, even though it was hard. But I also am giving the explanation on, now I have the understanding of, firsthand, why it's very important to be as ready as you can be before you get a dog, which are things that I talked about before I even got Dante. And then while I had him, I was explaining the same thing under In the Image Clothing Company content, posted, public, date marked, documented, right? So I didn't go into this stuff naive or ignorant. I didn't. On these things about what's happening here. It's not because I wasn't prepared out of ignorance. It's because I just flat out wasn't prepared, and I knew it. So I'm just kind of giving context on a lot of ends of this to really just talk about this as it is, because we don't want to get dogs and give up on them. Have them just end up in shelters again, or have them potentially be just, euthanized and put down, or have them end up in a worse home than when they were with us, And that's what I'm saying is that didn't happen to Dante. He went to a really good family. And, yeah, it's I almost want to say unfortunate, but it wouldn't have happened any other way. Meaning it shouldn't have happened any other way. It's not like I could have done more and kept him. No, because I could have just kept him. Regardless. I mean, we could have made something work if I was supposed to keep him. But, I really think that he was supposed to be, God is ever present. This is an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, after all, where we do have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's the point. That's the reason this podcast exists. I know God to the degree that I know God, and I know him deeper and deeper all the time that I know him deeper and deeper. It's my prayer to get closer to him, and he does that for me. And through this experience, that's a lot of what's happened in a lot of different ways. And I don't question in the slightest that I was supposed to get Dante. I was supposed to experience what I experienced with him, and I was supposed to be the person that gave him the life experiences that I gave him, and then I was supposed to give him to these beautiful people that he went to. I mean, I couldn't make it up. Oh, I guess I could, but I'm not just saying it. You can believe whatever you want. That's what we say, right? Here we go. As I say, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, me, Evan Strong, don't believe me. Don't believe our team members, our poodles, even with any of our information, just because you don't have to. Truth is truth. We don't get to decide or change truth as human beings. And so I'm not trying to make this seem like something, and you don't have to believe it. But I couldn't. That's like I want to say I couldn't make it up, but I sure could just sit here and tell you some story that wasn't true. Meaning, like, it's as real as it is. That's another phrase we say. It's as real as it gets. It's as obvious as it is once you see it. A lot of things we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company. But when this man, like the husband of the couple here, the husband and wife who took Dante, when he gave me a call 2 days ago, 16th of June, 2026, as I was like reaching out, I was reaching out to shelters. I was reaching out to rescues. I had Dante posted up somewhere online where, this local you know, yeah, where people could, look up things, buying and selling things local. I had one of my family members who posted him up on a social media account, as well. I was doing so much, like, pretty frantically trying to find him a home without trying to just, like, toss him to who knows where because I just needed to get rid of him. Because I didn't just need to get rid of him. There was kind of this balance where it's like, I'm in an urgent state to get out of the hot desert right now. I had to come back up here to Utah County. Got a few things I've got to do. I've got to get some financial things in place. I've got to get myself a vehicle again, and yeah, I've got to get a job for now. And it is what it is. It's humbling experiences, a lot of learning, and a lot of growth through it, and not mistakes, but steps along the way that just have to be taken that you don't foresee happening. But also, I don't know exactly how things are gonna happen anyway. It's just that I don't know what's gonna happen, right? Fully, we get revealed certain things by God, and along the way of those journeys, and that journey, meaning God's plan for us, even if we're following it as close as we can as imperfect human beings, following God's perfect plan, a lot of things come up along the way that we just couldn't have expected. And so, like this, I didn't expect to give Dante to someone else, but also it never seemed quite right for me to have Dante with the other dogs that we'll have. It just didn't seem right. I just kept thinking about it. Yeah. Like trying to figure out, well, how's this going to work then? Not that Dante was ever a problem, but it just never seemed like I was going to have him with my other dogs. That's what I'm really trying to explain. And now I won't. And it wasn't my choice either. Like, well, but rightfully and properly. I mean, there's a lot to this, and what I'm saying. This is me like giving a long way around into what I was starting to explain, which is because I want to give a lot of context with this. Whatever I feel I need to say in this episode of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast 206 on the 18th of June 2026. Right. Goodbye, Dante. Well, where was I with the explanation? Oh yeah, I called. Well, no, he called me. This dude, the husband to the wife of this couple, and when he called me, I was standing near Dante, and Dante got so excited. Dante didn't know, like, by me telling him, you know, that I was talking to someone on the phone. I mean, he heard my words, and I spiritually, I know that Dante understands so much that he could, so much more than he could like intellectually understand as a dog when it comes to human being languages. Dogs like actually intellectually can only understand what we say to a degree. We've got a video under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles currently titled Simplifying Dog Commands, because depending on the intelligence within each specific dog, and then also within each specific breed, dogs can learn up to a certain amount of human being words, in our own individual languages, however we speak to them personally. in our own language. Yeah, we're saying different things depending on what language you're speaking, but the dogs can learn only a certain amount of words, really, like to actually really understand what we're saying. But I know, spiritually, dogs can really, they can understand, pretty much everything. Maybe even more than we do as human beings, right? Don't agree with me, but that's me saying that, right? So I don't question that he knew, but meaning I was on the phone with this guy who is now Dante's father, human being father, but his owner, right? This guy and his wife, and Dante got so excited. Like he started making all the noises he makes when he gets excited. He's like rubbing his face all over me and jumping up on me and like making his little like happy whine sounds. I don't know what you call those sounds, but like whining, but because of excitement, and he's all happy about it. And then when they showed up, Dante was so good with them. Dante doesn't care about just about anything. We walk down the sidewalk. He ignores other dogs. He ignores other people. I can walk with him off lead, and he'll stay on the sidewalk with me. A lot of that is that I've done so much work with him since I adopted him. That's what I mean. I learned so much with training dogs. Man, I mean that's what I'm saying. It wasn't a mistake to have Dante. It wasn't a mistake. None of it. Like to go to St. George just for a month and a half at this point, and then come back up here to Utah County. No, I mean none of it was a mistake. That's what I'm saying. That's why there's so much context in this episode, just to show the truth of how God works. I learned how to train dogs, how to feed dogs. I got personal experience doing it for 6 months with an amazing dog. Anyway, and so many other things, all the other things that I experienced with him, to be the leader of In the Image Clothing Company Poodles for the rest of my life. And, never having owned a dog until Dante, now I've had 6 months of experience personally with Dante, like almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like right next to that, like 20 to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 months. It was Dante and I. I didn't have any other kind of like schedule throughout that time of other things I had to do besides In the Image Clothing Company things. And then, well, I mean, I was still doing things in my life, but like, not like where I had to be at a certain location away from him for any, certain amount of time as far as like a schedule of that. So, yeah, it was awesome. That's what I mean. God gave me this time. God gave Dante that experience. Oh, my goodness. And so he's just sitting there with him 2 days ago, right? The 16th of June, 2026, just in the backyard of the house I was at the time. I mean, even then, yeah, there's a lot to the story of us being homeless that we'll talk about. Whatever I do discuss with it, but we'll say more. Yeah, we'll give some good context of it going forth. Under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, the move, right? And yeah, we'll talk about it. But he loved them. What I'm saying is Dante ignores like everything basically. He doesn't really care about anything besides being with his owner. Well, being with me is, I'm just saying out of personal experience. He never really cared about doing anything besides just hanging out with me. Dante would never play fetch. He would never just run, except for right after getting wet. Like you give him a shower or a bath, he just but that's most dogs nowadays. That's just what they do. But people call it the zoomies around this time. They just start like zooming around, start running around. But Dante doesn't care about just about anything. And, we'd be around all these people all the time, and he'd come to me, like a little kid who's kind of shy, hiding behind their mother, like I did when I was a little kid. Like I kind of still feel like I do. I live with my mom here in Utah County. That's where I'm back at right now, and that's a lot of why it's a lot of why I'm back, honestly. There's a lot of context with that too, but a lot of context I've given as well already up until now under In the Image Clothing Company podcast on my mom and I situation. Yeah, there's a lot with that. But he loved these people. Dante is just like showing a lot of interest in this couple, and they loved him. And they kept telling me how they're looking for like the perfect dog, and I kept telling them the truth of it. Dante's a do everything dog. Dante is a dog I wouldn't change a single thing about, except if I could get him to stop barking when I left him alone. And that's something I probably could have done through training with him. Um, but I just hadn't done that yet. You know, to a degree, I was working with him, and he got a lot better at it. I mean, even just in the past month, up until a couple days ago when he got to his new home, he improved a lot just in the past month about, being quiet when I wasn't there. But it's just him crying, his barking is like a baby crying when you leave him alone. So that's what I mean. Some of that, you can't expect the dog to stop barking in ways, like no matter what dog it is. That's why it's kind of hard to try to train a dog not to bark. It's like trying to tell a human being not to cry or like call out for help. That's one of those things it's kind of hard for me because I personally don't like dogs barking either. A lot of people, it drives them nuts. I don't want to say it drives me nuts, but it kind of drives me nuts. It really kind of does, actually. You know? Yeah. For different reasons, like I'm saying, it's sad to see your dog sad because that's why they're barking in times like that because they're just left alone. But also, I just get kind of annoyed with dogs barking. Honestly, as much as I love dogs so much, I get really annoyed by it. But that's why I'm putting such focus on it is because that's the only, and I'm not kidding. That's the only one thing that I maybe like wasn't so pleased with, if you will, about Dante. Everything else, I loved him in every way. Him and I were best friends. Not just because he was my companion and he was there for me, but like maybe there were certain things that I didn't love so much that he did. No, I mean, like, I couldn't have asked for a better dog. Still, I mean, like I'm saying, I still would have him if it was the right choice to still have him. Yeah. No, I couldn't have asked for a better dog. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better dog with our dogs in the well. Speaking personally, with my dogs going forth, I couldn't ask for a better dog. I mean, we're gonna have all of our other dogs like meet his level of. Really, what I'm saying is like match with me, and my family is what I mean by our other dogs. Like as I get my own family going forth just throughout my life, but yeah, I mean, this is in the Image Clothing Company podcast, a very personal explanation. I mean, this is a very personal place here, a very well, as we say, blunt, bold, raw, and real in the Image Clothing Company. I mean, we get raw. I get with myself. I get, I expose, if you will, my own faults and my own emotions and the deep hardships that I go through. And yeah, I mean it's just a very vulnerable place. It's my intention and my goal to be as open, honest, and authentic as I can, just in life in general. And then behind in the Image Clothing Company as the founder, me, Evan Strong, I want to be clear. Well, it's still having those moments when you keep the things private, you keep private, but like out of respect and the things that make sense to you. Otherwise, I want to be open. I want to be honest with everything in life, with everyone in life. Well, all right, where it makes sense, but yeah, right, yeah, yes. So that's what I'm saying. Oh yeah, there's certain times, but no, I mean really not. I mean, right? I mean, yeah, the truth always comes to the surface, and we just want to be open and honest about everything as human beings, to live as free from bondage of our own doings as we can. There you go. That's my explanation on that. This is a gospel-centered podcast. I mean, that's the point. I'm not kidding. Like, well, yeah. Anyway, just to be clear, if this is your first time here or something, and we're just talking about a dog named Dante that you may not have any idea who it was, well, you can go find out. He'll always be there as well. That's what I mean. Permanently documented things is what we do under In the Image Clothing Company. All four sides of us, and so he's in so many of them, and always will be. Every episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast he was in, it's permanent. They're numbered. They're date marked. They're not going anywhere. As one of the things that it's not going to change under In the Image Clothing Company as time progresses. So there you go. Dante lives on, man. He's also still alive. He's probably still going to live like 10 years. He's a really healthy dog. In all the ways I know about what it means to have a dog be healthy, I never even had a time when he was sick. He threw up a few times, but it was mostly it's just like stomach bile stuff. Yeah, just like a handful of times in 6 months, That one time he ate a chicken bone, he had to throw that up. That was a whole big thing as well, I got super disciplinary with him because he went in the trash can and got a chicken bone that was cooked out. He swallowed it, then he threw it up the next morning. So, rightful discipline, right? I discipline them pretty harsh, but as I've said, I'm going to do that with my dogs going forth as well. I mean, you've got to teach them, and you got to nip it in the bud. Start cutting things off before they grow. You got to catch things before they become a habit or before they become a problem. Because yeah, Dante was one of the most, and this is people that are in my life that have been around a lot of dogs throughout their life, who have owned many different dogs. They've said the same thing to me just voluntarily. Dante truly is one of the best dogs you could ever possibly have, no matter who you are, when it comes to these things, because you have dogs for different reasons, but obedience, and again, this a lot of this has come from truly my harshness of discipline to him and the training I've done with him, but a lot of the credit's just to him too, for being the dog that he is. But yeah, patience. I mean, like, you'd have food. Yeah, he'd leave things alone he knew weren't his. I don't know how long we have with this on, storage space wise. So let's talk about what we need to. But this is also a new device. This is the first episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast here in Utah County with this device. Only the second one I filmed so far. Episode 205 and 206. This one here, So better quality audio. It's a good device in a lot of ways for what I need it for right now. So yeah, he was just gentle. He was, like I say, the bottom line is he was for me, and he is for who he's with now, a do everything dog. As we discussed, trying to have under In the Image Clothing Company poodles with our poodles, and that we breed to. Also, our do everything clothing, our do everything dog products that we will always have available under In the Image Clothing Company. That's our focus, just not having things in our lives restrict us. And so that's what I'm saying is Dante didn't restrict me because of him. My lifestyle was restricted because I had a dog and I didn't have my own place and my own transportation in this time. It's just different because I always have up until, relatively recently in my life. Seen with context, and it's given where it is, right? Under In the Image Clothing Company. I'm just saying, Dante, yeah, he's one of the best dogs anyone could ever possibly have. If you need a dog that's like him, he's not a dog that's going to herd your cattle. He's not a dog that's going to pull your snow sled, and dogs are meant for different things. He's not a police dog. He's a submissive dog that'll roll over and then let another dog kill him if they were to get in a fight, But for what I need a dog for, I couldn't have possibly asked for a better dog. So it's humbling, it's sobering, it is what it is, but also I've handled it very, very well. As much and as deeply as I love when I do, because there's just about nothing I care about in life except for the very few things that I really, really do care about when I do. I've handled it so well, which has been awesome because that's been a testament too to me personally that, like I'm saying, this was God's hand. He needed it to be just what it was, just for the time, as far as with me and Dante together. Going forth, I will get a puppy, but that's something I couldn't do like I've done here in this situation. When I got Dante, he was already potty trained. I have to have my own place to get a puppy, especially to be able to have them, they're going to go to the bathroom in the house. They will. You're not going to avoid it, really. I mean, it's pretty much going to be impossible to not have that happen by having a puppy and raising them in the house, you know. And then also just like the amount of attention a puppy needs is even more than just a dog in general. And I mean, I was with Dante pretty much always, but it's different as a puppy. I'm going to get a puppy. I don't know when. It might be, I'm not going to say timeline, but I'm just going to, yeah, I mean, yes, I'm still going to do everything that we've discussed. Like I'm saying, to be very clear, nothing has changed under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, except that Dante is no longer a part of it. And it meaning my life, as Evan Strong, the founder and leader of In the Image Clothing Company. Poodles, as one of the fourths, okay, to us. So yeah, I mean, expect everything that I've said that I'm expecting still. If you're following along the journey of In the Image Clothing Company, just as it progresses, and our team builds and our poodle family builds and our actual family builds, and just know. I mean, I don't expect anything to be any different than what I've talked about as far as In the Image Clothing Company poodles and everything else too. Really, seriously, in all the other ways that's able to be explained like that. Yeah. But Dante's just not going to be a part of it anymore. And it's not his fault. It's not even my fault either. It's not anyone's fault because only good things have come from all this. Hear that correct. So much growth, so much experience, and a lot of permanent work too. Permanent documentation through these videos, permanent knowledge about the health of dogs and how to take care of them that I gained by owning Dante that I can now take forth into, getting my first puppy. I still never had a puppy up until now. Dante was a full grown dog, which was great, when I got him. Yeah. So anyway, just some context, and I could explain it deeper and more thoroughly and give more stories about a lot of stuff. But that's what we'll say for now, because it's just, an explanation on what happened to him, where he went, and also some good, beautiful messages of life lessons that I've learned and that I'm teaching whoever's listening on the other side of this as well, right? In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 205. Plus one more, actually, episode 206 is what this is. That's how I said it at the beginning, too. There you go. Goodbye, Dante. Lost but not forgotten, as they say. I'll never forget him. This is emotion now. Earlier, there actually was something in my throat. I wasn't trying to make an excuse. I don't make an excuse like that. I get emotional. Yeah, but now it's true emotion. When my voice wasn't coming out fully right there. Yeah, it's sad. I love him. I still, it's almost like breaking up with someone who you still love, but it's just better for you two to be apart from each other going forth. That's what it's like. No fault of either of ours. It's just it's time to not be together anymore. That's really what it is. It's like a relationship. Well, I mean, it is one, but even between human beings, it's a very similar kind of dynamic. Like I say, it's like having a son. It's like if slash when I have my own son going forth. Yeah, it's a big deal. He was a huge part of my life. I mean, in a lot of ways, I don't want to say this. It's almost blasphemy if I'm saying it, but so I won't say it like that. I'll say what I was going to say. I was going to say it was almost like Dante was my life, but that's not the case. It's not like my life revolved around Dante, but it's like I had to schedule my life around Dante, if you can see what I mean. Which wasn't a bad thing. He wasn't the problem. He wasn't a hindrance. I mean, in all truth, yeah, for things like going into places that he wasn't allowed. But that's something that I got myself into when I don't regret or anything. I don't regret things in general, but meaning looking back on it, it's not like something I feel like maybe shouldn't have happened like that. No, it should have. It's all been awesome. What it all has been, if nothing else, and the way to really explain it is experience and growth. And it's been wonderful. And permanent too, like permanent experience and permanent growth, which I guess is how those two things usually are. Yeah, basically, in most all cases. Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's what I'm saying is it's so much happened with him, man, that I couldn't have done before getting my first puppy, before Nita, before the breeding program gets started. Now I have so much experience, and also this too. I mean, experience seeing my personal dog in situations with other dogs. Seeing the way that people react and respond to me because I'm an owner of a dog and have dogs with or around them. And in certain locations and houses and yeah, I mean, I've gained so much firsthand personal experience that is only just preparation for the rest of what's to come. So it's not like some kind of discouragement where it's like, oh, I'm not even gonna say what it's not, but that's what it isn't. I'll say that. Yeah, that's great. That's what I am saying. But I don't need to get into specifics of like the truth that it's not some kind of discouragement in any way, because we can say had to rehome Dante. It was more like because it was God's plan. I could have, like I said earlier, just to make it very clear, kept Dante for the rest of his life. There's so many ways we could have done this. Even if it was something like fostering him out to someone for a while who just wanted a dog, maybe for a time, and would have taken care of him well, while I got myself in a place where I could permanently house him under my own housing and my own transportation. And there's so many ways that I could have kept Dante if that was what was supposed to happen. It's not like I just frantically had to cast him off. Okay, just to be clear. To clear myself for people thinking like, oh, he just decided he didn't want the dog and now he claims he's teaching how to be good owners of dogs when he just gave one up. No, there's a lot to it, and it was supposed to be this way. You don't have to believe it. I don't have to believe it. But it is what it is, right? A lot of things we just can't deny too, and even those that would want to deny something about someone else's life, there's a lot of things that line up in ways that in certain situations and things you couldn't possibly think it was supposed to be otherwise, or dispute that it was supposed to be what it is, so it is what it is. Dante's gone. So anyway, even this, I mean, before adopting Dante, the first week that I fostered him before I actually adopted him, and then the whole time I owned him, I kept saying things where I did, about I get along better with female dogs. Like, I feel a more natural connection between myself and female dogs. And there's a lot of reasons to that, Um, you know, I was only supposed to have Dante for the amount of time that I had him. It all worked out how it was supposed to work out. No one's got to believe it, myself included, but I'm also not making some kind of like excuse. It doesn't matter either. I can do whatever I want. I'm not trying to like sound a certain way either, right? I'm just giving a lot of context on a lot of ends, as I do, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, as we do here, just discussing things as they are. As I've said, a lot of times we discuss things just to discuss things for the sake of deepening our understandings of them. Under In the Image Clothing Company podcast here, that's a lot of what we do sometimes. Yeah, it's just to deepen our understandings. And I got my understandings deepened so much by owning Dante. Lessons I will take into the dogs that I own going forth. Lessons that I will take into my explanations and the information I deliver behind In the Image Clothing Company Poodles as the founder. Me, Evan Strong. So, growth, experience, lessons, firsthand too, in a way that couldn't possibly happen quite the same without actually owning a dog. You can only get certain experience in life by actually doing it one specific way. Secondhand experience will always be secondhand experience versus firsthand experience. And yeah, right. Yeah. Humbling. It's been a very humbling process. Sleeping where we were, eating what we were, trying to stay hydrated how we did, living out of a wagon. It's not just because we were homeless that I had to get rid of Dante. Again, just to be very clear on the reasoning as to why, just to be able to explain this properly. Everyone's going to have their opinions on whatever anyway. It's not like I can fully clear myself from people thinking it's whatever. I could just be saying whatever too, right? But the irony of the timings of things, the locations of things, some of the stuff I've given context on in this, it's been crazy. It's been how things have worked out. It's been crazy. How it's like, oh yeah, it couldn't have been any other way, right? So, which is insane that that's the case, because it blows our minds as human beings when a perfect God who knows everything before it happens just does his thing. When we have no idea what's going on, and he's like, I knew the whole time. That is crazy. And, we just get experiences like this where we do, if we open ourselves up to him, if we open ourselves up to God, right? Draw near to him, and then he'll draw near to you. We have to draw near to him first, and then he'll draw near to us. And a lot of times he takes us on crazy experiences as like purifying experiences and refining experiences and deepening and like I'm saying, growth, and then that's a lot of what this has all been. Just the 6 months with Dante for this episode of In the Image Clothing Company's In the Image Clothing Company podcast episode here, specifically. Well, yes, I was going to say other things as well, but yeah, that is for the title of this and why this is what it is, why this discussion is here and being documented is Goodbye, Dante. Well, it was at one point, hello, Dante, you're this dog that's now with me. Walked into the South Utah Valley Animal Shelter. I look over and I'm like, you're small. That's what I thought the first thing. And I'm like, you're cute, though. He's just bark, 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 bark. His whole head's like moving as he barks at me. And he's got this like long, fluffy hair at the time. He just had a bath that day and he had this like poofy hair, all covering his eyes. And I've discussed this before. And also, his hair was how it was when I first saw him in some of those first video documentations that are publicly posted, at least as of now. And, under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, that's not going anywhere, Some things might fluctuate, that we've posted if and where they do if needed. But In the Image Clothing Company podcast numbered episodes, they're permanent. Dante's sitting up on this bed behind me right now. Same bed. This big old fluffy long hair at the time. It was fun. It was good. It was better than good. I mean, it was perfect in the sense of it was perfectly placed by God, the whole experience I had with Dante. So thank you. And goodbye. Okay, I'm cutting this, but goodbye, Dante. 2 days ago as of now. Today's the 18th of June, 2026. This is In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 206. Yeah, titled Goodbye, Dante. So, In the Image Clothing Company music, I'm going to get a new guitar here probably tomorrow. As far as I know, that's when I will be receiving that guitar. I'm planning for a lot of things to blossom, truly, under In the Image Clothing Company music once I get this guitar and just where I'm at in my life right now. The main side of In the Image Clothing Company has been blossoming. As I've talked about in previous episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, and just, yes, specifically there. we pass certain thresholds as human beings, and I've discussed it behind In the Image Clothing Company as the founder, me, Evan Strong, where, there's been moments where we've like passed thresholds where things just work differently and move more efficiently from that point forth. And that's where I am right now. I've just passed like a whole like threshold of change, like into a new chapter, if you can see what I'm saying by that. That's what I'm saying, is something, explained like that. Yeah. Right now, like in this time, it's been crazy. And, seen with the right context that I've given in this episode, it's a good thing Dante's gone. It's going to give me a lot of opportunities to do what I need to right now. I'm going to get more dogs. Owning dogs isn't the problem. Dante himself wasn't ever the problem. I wasn't the problem by owning him either. I just, again, making it all clear on what's really going on with all this and the learning and experience behind it. So, but we've definitely passed the threshold again, like another kind of like jump forward in progression. Under and, through In the Image Clothing Company, specifically me, though, the one speaking as the founder. Evan Strong is my name. So expect it, okay? In the Image Clothing Company music, expect it, okay? Thank you.